Hello fellow modelers, welcome to Randy's Dioramas and Trains. This is going to be episode 3 of Rock Cliff with a River, and we're going to be going through the process of painting the rocks today. So sit back, relax, and let's get started. So here I'm just going to start painting the tops of the rocks ground cover, and I'm going to be using burnt umber as my paint. So this is just where I'm going to be putting all my ground cover, grass, trees, and making sure that if there's any spots that are missed, that there won't be any white showing through. So it's just got a base color underneath it, and I'm doing my best as I go around the edges where the rocks are to make sure that I'm not getting any of the brown on the rock, so just being a little careful around the edges. We're doing the top part just to get that, again making sure that I'm getting very little on the actual rock pieces that I'm going to be painting a different color. The washes that I'm going to be using it's very little paint that I'll be putting in the cup, and a lot of water, so just to make it very runny with some color. And if I end up having to do more coats, right, just to get the color I want, the first color I'm going to use is yellow ochre. And that's just one of the lighter colors. Then I'm going to be using a maple syrup brown, a little lighter, and then the burnt umber again. And the final coat, I'm going to be using a black wash. These are all just paints that I had lying around from other things that we've done for other crafts, so I wasn't too picky about the brand and that. So here's the first color, the yellow ochre. And then a mix, and we're just going to start putting that on all over, and not too worried about whether or not there's some white showing through or not. This is just the first coat, and doesn't look the best here, all yellow, but I'm pleased with the end product that came out at the end, so just bear with me as we go through this. One thing that I'm finding right off the bat here is the spots where the plaster is. It seems to be taking the paint rather well, but anywhere that I've got the Sculptamold, it appears to be not soaking in at the same level, so it's running off, and a lot lighter wherever the Sculptamold is. So definitely, I think in the future we'll be making sure that use the same medium for the entire project, right? Either use Sculptamold with Sculptamold or plaster with plaster, so that way the paint takes the same and soaks in the same level. And then once this yellow is finished, then just sit and let it dry before you put on the next coat. That way it just doesn't wash it off. So I've let this sit for, oh no, about 20 minutes or so. It looks dry. We'll see how it reacts here. This is the maple syrup brown, watered down. So just dab that all over and start blending the colors together, and even though I've let the paint dry a bit, I'm noticing that as soon as I put on the brown, that some of the areas where it's the sculpted mold, it's just washing away the yellow. It hadn't really soaked in or anything. So again, yeah, just making sure the next time I do any rocks, I'll be using plaster with plaster. I think plaster seems to take the water or the paint a little better. Just letting it run down from the top so it tries to get in all the cracks, and as if over time, you know, the weathering has run down the rock. Okay, I've let that dry for a bit, and now we're going to go to the next darker brown. This is the burnt umber. The end goal here, what I'm shooting for, is rusty brown with some yellow in the rock is what I'm shooting for. Maybe like a reddish color in there too. Just wanted something a little bit more colorful than just gray with some black and a little bit of white in there. I just wanted something a little different. Okay, now I'm getting to the black wash after letting that dry for a bit. This is so that any recesses and areas have some darkness to it, so that way when you look at the rock after the fact, the spots that, you know, should be in the shadows are a little darker. I think there's still a little bit too much yellow in there, so I've decided to go back over with some of the browns again, just to darken that up some more. So we're going to get some more brown in there, just to try and get rid of the yellow so it's not as prominent. So I've noticed that, yeah, the spots where the sculpted mold is, it hasn't really soaked in the paint in them. Some spots it's looking a little bit too white still, so I'm just trying to get that paint on there, and it doesn't seem to be soaking in. So I'm gonna have to touch it up with airbrush, and not the airbrush I mean, but do some dry brushing of some of the colors straight onto the rocks to make sure that the colors are all blending in as nice. And as you can see here, this is the finished product here with the color I was kind of shooting for. So that seems to have turned out pretty good for my aspects. So I'm gonna leave it there, and thanks for watching. So that concludes part 3 of painting the rocks for the rock cliff with the river. Again, I can only say I've learned that when you're doing plaster and painting, that try and make all your media the same. So don't mix Sculptamold with plaster. It's better to have plaster with plaster. That way your paint will all take the same to the same medium. So for part 4, hopefully we'll get on some ground cover, and maybe even get into pouring the resin for the river. So if you haven't already subscribed to this channel, please do so. Click that like button and click that bell for future notifications, and thanks for watching.